What's going on, world? You're rocking with the young man Nuke, and you're listening to FRESHH Radio, where I bring you family, revolution, edutainment, spirituality, health, and hip-hop all in one show. And, I've been in the talks of getting my guest currently on the that's on the line right now. In talks of getting him on the air so we can share his visions and his creations. And no time like the present. Without further ado, my man Jovan Nesbit, you out there, bro?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm here with you guys.
That's what's
yeah,
up,
I'm
bro.
Jovan. I mean, what do? I do a lot of stuff, but it's mainly comic books right now. So that's my forte.
Man, just tell the people about you. Tell the people about you, what it is you do, how you do, how long you've been doing all that.
Okay, well, I'm from Stockton, California. So if anybody that's listening knows what Stockton, California is, it's basically a big hood city. So it's like it's reminiscent to what you would expect Central LA, or even East LA. So that's where I come from. A lot of people say I'm well spoken and I don't sound too hood or whatever, but we can discuss that later. Coming from Stockton, I moved around a lot. I did the whole homeless thing. I did the whole starving thing, the whole drugs thing. I never did drugs, but I was in around drugs and maybe so a little bit. But I've always been an artist. I've always drawn stuff. I used to get in trouble for drawing. That's how much I would draw. I would draw in class. I would draw at home. People would be like, "You doing your homework?" I'm like, "Yeah, I got this tight ass drawing that I'm doing. That's my homework." So I didn't do real well in school, but I did really well at drawing. So I started making money off of it. I went to the 8th grade or whatever, or 7th grade once I moved to SoCal. And I walked into class, and they were like, "Hey, we're doing this little project where we draw our hands." And so they're like, "Draw your hand." So I drew my hand in different, angles and stuff, and everybody in the class surrounded me. They're like, "Wow, this guy's really good. This guy's really good." And so the teacher comes up to me, and I'll never forget her name, Mrs. Finch. She's super nice. And she was like, "You know what? Come in my little office," because she had an office in her, in her room. And she goes in there, and she's like, "You seem to be like ahead of everybody except for like one person in the class." So she was like, "Check this out. I'm just going to give you an A for the whole year, and you can just do whatever you want in this class. Just turn in a project, every few months of your choice." And I was like, "All right, is this for real?" I was like, "Where the cameras at, man?" So I started making money. She helped me make money and all that other stuff. But, a lot of people that do art are starving artists. That's where the term comes from, and I was one of them. So I fell off in art. I was doing art in the 80s and 90s as a kid and teenager, and that's before the internet. So if I'd had the internet, man, I'd be one of the biggest artists right now when it comes to drawing shit and coloring and all the other stuff. But that wasn't my era. So after being stupid and having kids and messed up relationships, I moved across the country and do all this kind of stuff, and I actually went to school to become an engineer. But all those times I was drawing in class, I was paying attention to the math class, so it was pretty damn hard. Even though I did well, I couldn't do that and work a full-time job. So basically here I am now, and I started writing a story, a Western, a spaghetti Western. Because a good friend that I worked with near Boston, he was a writer, and he was really into spaghetti Westerns and horror films and horror writing and all this other stuff, and he was a published writer. And, this guy was crazy. This guy, his name is Mike Shea, and unfortunately he passed away a few years ago and stuff, but he taught me a lot. I love film for my whole life. Like my favorite movie is RoboCop. Uncensored. Brains flying out, people blowing up and shit. That's the type of stuff I love. But we connected based off of that, and he just taught me some stuff about writing and just having confidence in yourself. And I've been blessed over, the period of 40 years of my life with some really close friends. And I don't have many friends, man. I'm a loner. But, it's been 3 or 4 people that have really showed me some stuff. Like, mentoring is important, man. So now on my path, I start writing this book because, he dies. And I'm like, you know what? We always talked about this shit. I can't let him down. So I write this book called The Runaway. And it starts, morphing into something bigger. There's once you write a story, you have to create other characters unless this person's just alone in a room for their whole life. So we're creating these other characters that got more in depth. And the runaway, of course, is a runaway slave. Real original, right? Ain't nobody talked about that before. Yeah. A black runaway slave. Wow. I'm gonna be famous. But I did a little hook on it, I don't want to tell too much of the story because nobody's even really heard the story.
Okay, yeah.
But
gotta go read it. Gotta go purchase
The Runaway
is support.
Yeah, it's crazy because what I'm doing now with Ruminant Brood, and I came up with Ruminant Brood. Brood, I first really started hearing the definition and it being thrown around by my friend Michael Shea in the East Coast,
Mm.
So it's kind of a nod to him. Ruminant, it's like a group of thinkers or ponderers or whatever, basically, if I could just be, clear and quick with that definition.
Yeah.
But the runaway is an escaped slave, and I thought that I wouldn't want to watch this. I wouldn't if somebody told me, hey, I got this book called The Runaway, and this is an escaped slave. I'd be like, okay, well, fuck off. I ain't watching this shit. I don't want to see this. I don't want to see this for the 100th time. I don't want to see black people being slaves and running, and it's this perilous thing that they got to do. And even after they escape, they still got to deal with racism and all that. I don't want to see that.
Right.
But that's what me writing the story. That's what flipped it. That's what made it evolve. Is that I don't want to see that, but it's kind of like trickery.
Mm-hmm.
So my idea was I'm gonna write this book, and I'm gonna make it 50,000 words, and I'm going to try to get it a publishing deal or get published.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I didn't know shit about this. I during high school and grammar school and all other stuff, I didn't really pay attention. I'm a smart guy, I guess people say. But once I went to college, the one standout that I really had was writing. My English professors were like, wow, man, like this is where you should be, doing these essays and stuff. And I was like, I don't know. I didn't even really know how to complete a sentence before I went to college. Like, I didn't know the definition. And then I had to, really just study and ask the professor questions. And they're like, okay, you're stupid, but you're not dumb. You know what I mean? And so I just learned and I soaked up the game. And so I meet my wife, and my wife just happens to have a master's degree in English literature and in teaching English. And she's my wife is from Slovakia. She's from Central Europe, She doesn't speak English as her native language. That's what makes it even more funny to me, is that she knows English better than 90% of the United States.
Crazy. I was going to say the exact same thing. Your wife is actually teaching you how to use English.
Mm-hmm.
She's not even from here.
Man,
funny. That's funny.
It's It's wild, man. And that's the whole thing. That's the first thing I had to learn in this life is humble. Be humble. Because a lot of people, a lot of men especially, can't be humble enough to, like, progress with this strong woman that I married. You know, a lot of people are like, oh, you know, I got to have my pride and stuff. And while I am prideful, I've always been humble in certain ways, you know. A lot of people that know me are like, fuck that guy, man. This guy thinks he knows every fucking thing. I hate the way he talks. But for the most part, I get it, you know. So I married her, and she's like, hey, you want to write a story? Then write this story. And then she's, like, critiquing me and stuff, and she pretty much teaches me how to nail it down. And so now I'm just, you know, I've evolved, and I just do my own thing and shit. And she goes over it at the end. You know, she's my editor. You'll see her name in the book.
That's cool.
Yeah, it's like it's a nice team, and you know I'm the artsy one, and so she comes to me when it comes to what she's doing in her business and stuff, and I, you know, it's like a, you know, give, take, receive, give, or whatever, harmonious little relationship.
What do they call it?
On top of
synergy. That's one of those corporate words. Synergy.
Synergy, yeah. So when I write this book, she's helping me, and she, like, I get it all. I don't get the whole book even written, but I started doing all this research about getting, you know, a book deal, and I'm like, oh, so I need a literary agent. And then I look up how people get literary agents, and they're like, oh, yeah, I tried like 100 times, or this great, you know, poet or author tried 100 times before they got a deal. People turn down some of the best best books ever multiple times, and I was like, oh, so, you know, damn well I ain't getting shit. But, you know, I have persistence, and I have the belief that I'll succeed in shit that I want to do. So I started doing research on what they want. So a lot of them want 5 or 10 pages of your book and a synopsis. And so I was like, let me go on the internet. Thank God the internet exists, because I'd have had to go read a whole bunch of books and waste a whole bunch of time. Yeah, so I learned how to write a synopsis. I write a synopsis about the runaway. And then I really go in on my first 5 pages, right? And somehow, like, I used to work at Audi Palo Alto, this car dealership, and for some reason it's over, you know, it's in Silicon Valley, so there's some people that come in there that are pretty prestigious people. Like, I met this guy that used to be like the head of engineering at NASA or something, and we're, you know, just as a side story, just so I don't lose where I was at with the book, I write the synopsis, and I write the first 5 pages, and I want it to be tight. Anyways, this little side tangent. I meet this guy, works for NASA, and for whatever reason, I learned that he was from NASA, and we talk about, I'm talking about, you know, Europa and all these different moons, you know, Enceladus, all these different moons out in our solar system. And he's like amazed. We're talking about, you know, vapor plumes and, you know, subsurface oceans and you name it. And he's like, wow, a lot of people don't know about this type of stuff. And I'm like, yeah, a lot of people don't. And a lot of people don't care to know. And he's like, how do you know about it? So I was like, I just read about it. I've been interested in this stuff for years and years. So I read columns, and, you know, I sift through all this information and stuff. So I have a pretty good understanding of what's going on. He's like, that's amazing, man. He's like, I hope there's, you know, I told him about my kids. He's like, I hope you pass it on. And I'm like, of course, man. They're going to know about this regardless if they like it or not. So the next day, he comes back in. And he's like, hey, do you remember me? And I'm like, you know, I'm frustrated because I work at car parts dealership, you know what I'm saying? And I'm like, fuck everybody. it's not a good day today. And he's like looking at me. He's like, he could tell that I'm frustrated because I'm dealing with these idiot customers. And he's like, hey, man, I just wanted to give you something. And so I snap out of it. I'm like, oh, yeah, I remember you. And he's like, yeah, I have a gift for you. And he gives me this little, it's like 2 inches, 3 inches long, this little cylinder, a plastic glass cylinder with like a base to it that screws into it. And he's like, hey, this is a spacecraft. And this inside of it is this little, it's like a microchip, like on a little perch. This thing is like maybe 5 to 10 centimeters. I think it's about 5 centimeters by 5 centimeters, like a little square.
Okay.
And he's like, this spacecraft has 5 or 6 cameras. I can't remember how many. He's like, and we're trying to send it to Alpha Centauri. And I'm like, the star system? And he's like, yeah. He's like, yeah, we're trying to send it to like Proxima Centauri or something like that. And I'm like, how? And he's like, and I'm like, the Starshot program? And he's like, yeah, you know that too? And I'm like, yeah, I heard about the Starshot program. And so he's like, wow, he's like, you keep on amazing me or whatever. So the Starshot program is basically, the dude, I can't even think of his name, Stephen Hawking. He just passed away, a year or two ago?
Yeah, I do remember Stephen Hawking.
Him. There's this Russian billionaire, I forget, Yuri some shit, I don't know his name. And then there's Mark, I think it's Mark Zuckerberg. They all partnered to create a solar cell that will be blasted by lasers to a fraction of the speed of light, carrying these little spacecraft, like 1,000 of these spacecraft. And they're supposed to send that to Alpha Centauri. It's supposed to. Yeah, so it's supposed to take 20 years to get there, and it's going to take pictures once it gets there and send them back. And so I was like, this is fucking amazing. It's like, yeah, that's yours to keep. That's one of the prototypes. So, just to give you an idea of the people that you meet there. So there's another dude that comes in there after that, and he's a writer. He's a successful writer, too, from the 70s. And somehow I talked my way into him being willing to look at my story. And so he critiques my story, and so I go back to the drawing board, and he's like, yeah, I like what you're doing. He's like, I want to know more. And so I'm like, good, because I was still writing the book at that point. So I start sending it out even before I'm done. Not really caring that you're supposed to have your book done before you send it out, pretty much. Because if they like the first 5 pages, they're going to be like, okay, send me the rest. And if you only had 10 pages, but you need 200 pages, you're going to be like, can you give me a couple months? So, right. But I'm just sending it out anyways, because that's the type of person I am. I'm just fucking crazy. So, people are ignoring me. People are getting back to me. A lot of people are like, oh, yeah, your story has merit, or you're good at writing or whatever, or it's interesting. It's just not our cup of tea, basically. We ain't fucking with the black shit. Nobody wants to read that shit. We want to read about trolls and fucking fairies and stuff, So, so I get frustrated, and I'm like, fuck this. I had a side thing that I was going to do. After I get turned down 10, 15 times, I'm like, you know what? I told myself I'm going to just make comic books if that doesn't work out. So I'm like, I get on Instagram of all places, and I'm searching for an artist to do my, do my first comic book. And it's crazy because I always follow the stuff, everybody follows the stuff that they like. Yeah, I follow some hood shit, and I follow some hip-hop, and I follow, just random shit, funny stuff, people falling on their faces and stuff. But for the most part, I follow artists that, illustrate or do three-dimensional sculpts, or I follow stuff that has to do with space flight or science or whatever, or photography. Yeah. So I have an abundance of that to look at on my Instagram. So I'm like, you know what? I'm just going to ask these guys, because when I would try to do it the formal way, when I would try to go out into the world the formal way, I would get shunned or people would ignore me or whatever. So I'm like, guess what? I'm going to go on Instagram, because I've even talked to people before. So I started reaching out to people, and people are expensive. So I'm like, look, I got to like find somebody that's fairly unknown. So I find this guy, Skylar Kinney. This guy, he lives in Mammoth Lakes, which is, you know, maybe 500 miles away from here.
Okay.
Still in California, though. It's like south of Lake Tahoe. So, and I'm like, hey, man, you want to do some character designs for me? Because at this time, I know what the characters look like in my head, and I had one character design. I had the Runaway design by this guy named Carlos Hante. Maybe a couple months before, it cost me $500 for some sketches, because this dude, Carlos, he works on all these big movies. Yeah, he's worked on stuff like Pacific Rim and Prometheus and Alien Covenant. He's worked on all types of films. Mm-hmm. So of course, you know, he charges he gave me a discount for a day's worth of work. And he's like, this is the farthest I could develop the character. He's like, I like the character. It reminds me of, you know, the movie I worked on, Dark Tower. And I'm like, this fool is like comparing myself to Dark Tower. That's great. Anyways, so I'm like, I got to like hold my horses and kind of not go to the upper echelon right now. Even though that's cool to talk about and see, I got to go to somebody that's fairly unknown. So I find Skylar Kinney, and I'm like, hey, man, you want to do some character designs? And he's like, yeah, I'll do them for like this much, good amount. You know, I'll do some character designs for some amount that you can afford. So I started having him design the characters from the story, and he has that sketch from the Runaway already. There's a person chasing the Runaway. His name is the Cavalryman, and then there's the inspector and the white-haired man, and then there's the Empress. So there's these different characters from the book that appear in the book. So, and then there's the Irishman, of course, who is a funny character. So he does all these character designs, and I'm like, oh, these are kind of tight. It's a different style. And so I approach him, and I'm like, hey, man, you want to do a comic book? And he's like, hell yeah. And so I'm like, I got this 250-page, you know, novel, and he's like, okay, and he calculates. He's like, oh, it's going to be $10,000. I'm like, bro, I'm not paying nobody $10,000 for no comic. I don't give a fuck if this shit is like the best in the world. I'm not paying. I'm like, how about this? How about I write a short story about a side character, and you do that? And he's like, yeah. So we get it down to like, you know, between $2,000 and $1,000, you know. And I'm like, I'll write about the Cavalryman because he's a cool character. And so at the end of the Runaway, there's a sequence that happened, and then at the beginning of the Cavalryman story is where that picks up. So
Okay.
So and there's this whole universe, man. Go ahead.
I got I do have a copy of the Cavalryman. You know, I actually got a copy of Act 2. And I haven't even read the copy of Act 2 because it's autographed and it's still in the plastic, you know. I kind of want to keep it that way. I might have to just get another copy of Act 2 so I can actually play with that one. But
I'll get you some. Yeah.
Man, we'll make sure that we can get some of the listeners out there or something too. You know, just for listening. You know, and you do got this giveaway going on where you're giving away what is it, 1/6 or 1/8 scale model of the Cavalryman?
Yeah. So another thing that I've gotten into is collectibles because I'm always just finding ways to spend money. You know, my wife loves it because she knows every cent that I've spent. So yeah, plan is like I'm not gonna just be a comic book guy. Like you look on the internet right now, there's probably 100 million different comic books. I'm probably, that's me lowballing.
Yeah.
And 90% of them are about Spider-Man. So like anybody can do a comic book. I hate it, man. That's I just got to go to one of my pet peeves. All these dumbass artists, I don't care if you've been working for 30 years. I do not care. I don't care if your stuff looks real or the best cartoon, but you want to draw Iron Man, Spider-Man, Superman, and Terminator 100 times in 3,000 different poses. The math doesn't check out, but you know what I mean. You want to do that, and then when I come,
the Goku poses back in high school and shit.
Yeah, man.
Everybody was drawing pictures of Goku.
You want to
and
draw the same shit that everybody already has 1,000,000 times, and then when I come to you with money in hand for a new comic book, you want to fucking put me on the back burner? I'm not even trying to get a comic book out of you. I'm trying to just get a pose, and you're like, oh no, I got to draw Spider-Man's ass crack again, because that's what everybody wants to see. Got to be just like everybody else. I hate them, man. Anyways, I can't even remember where I was because I got so frustrated. I didn't want to just do comic books. So I was like, hey, I'm going to start making this merchandise. So I made some beanies with my logo after I got it trademarked, because I don't want people trying to steal my shit. Trademark, thanks to a co-worker, a friend named Justin Dawson. He did the little application for me. I was like, hey, I don't want to mess this up. You're smart. You do it. So he kind of taught me how to do it. I really got to give big thanks to my brother, C-Lim, or people know him as Cuzzalo Inc., because he was like, yeah, make sure you copyright your shit or trademark it, because people will steal shit, and he has firsthand accounts of that. So I listened to the people that have been doing it, and I took help from people that are just, I assume, have a better attention to detail than I do. So that's what I started doing, man. I've always been attuned to, like, I can do art, man. I could draw a comic book if I put my time in it, but I don't have time to do that shit. I got kids. I got, change diapers and shit. And I want to just be lazy to have a beer every once in a while. So you can't be like that when you want to do comic books. You got to eat, drink, sleep, drawing. And I don't do that anymore.
So,
that was beaten out of me by society.
Let me ask you this. Really running short on time, man. This is an awesome, beautiful interview, man. I let you ramble, man, and run on.
Mm-hmm.
You told all the story, and that was the important part. Like I said, I want to get you on here again because, believe it or not, we're on a similar type page. I thought I was going to squeeze in a little perseverance in this call, but you blessed me with the. You said with Starlink. I didn't know about that at all. And you actually got a little camera. You got the Starship. That's one of the reasons why I just kept letting you talk, because I was enjoying it. like for sure.
Yeah. That's what I do, man. I just go on these tangents, man.
And we're gonna come back. We're about to get you back on here for another tangent for sure. Because there's more I want to talk about the Calvary, man. Like I said, I'm interested. I'm captivated by the story at this point, and we gotta get into a little bit more about the Ruderman blood, and blood, and like I said, other aspects, man. What, instead of asking you what you have coming up, because just like me, you're a family man, and that family is an ever-changing, evolving beast of entity. I want to ask you, what are you most looking forward to that's coming up in the near future?
I'm looking forward to The Weaving is another comic book that I got coming out soon. On top of that is Cavalryman Act 3, and then Automaton. Yeah, and I know it's not how it's spelled, it's not pronounced like that, but that's how the hell it's supposed to be said. Just to put that out there. I have Automaton Chapter 1. That's already out. I'm putting out Chapter 2. I'm going to start working on that soon. The Weaving, 3 Kingdoms. The first episode of 3 is coming out in the next few months, or probably even 2 months. That is what I'm really excited about, because it's a deep story. It's all connected to the Runaway and the Cavalryman, just like the Automaton War is. And so when you guys see, I posted little snippets of the monster that is named the Weaving. This is the story how it comes to be. And the story takes place in the 1600s. So, it has to do with, battles and old school cavalry and, the 3 Kingdoms wars that happened or the War of 3 Kingdoms that happened in the UK that basically brought about the UK, the United Kingdom. So, yeah, it's my take on it, and it all connects the whole story, man. And I got some new characters coming out. I got a character called Stinwolf, and I got another one called Booban, which is a funny name, but I love it. So, yeah, I got Reagan and the Time Refugees coming. So I got some stuff coming, man. I'm excited about all that.
Here first. Man, Jovan, I appreciate you sliding through and blessing the audience with this information. You're going to be back, whether you like it or not. You got to come back. I'm captivated into the story myself, and I got to pick your brain a little bit more, because you had the conversation with the NASA fella, and that's extremely dope, man. One of my things here on the show is I really don't talk about it often, but man, I like space exploration. I do talk about what's going on in our heavenly world that's around us, because we're just one jewel in this multifaceted jewel bag of things, Man, how can the people get in contact with you?
The best way, man, is, go on to Instagram. That's where I've done all my business, believe it or not, like I said earlier. Ruminant Brood. That's the handle. Or you can go to my personal page, which is C_forward. So C forward, like you're looking ahead of yourself. The underscore in the middle. Those are the 2 places that you can go to find me. Other than that, man, you can look up the hashtag Cavalryman, or look up the hashtag Ruminant Brood on Instagram, and you'll find my stuff there too. That's the easiest way is to probably look up Cavalryman hashtag. So yeah, that's how you find me, because I ain't gonna give you my phone number or my email. So.
Hell no. I did that one time, and that was the worst thing ever. I'm not Mike Jones. I promise you that, man, bro. Tell the people, just drop one good jewel on my audience's head. Just one thing that they could take away from you as an individual walking this planet with them.
I would say if you take anything away from me and this, what we're doing is that thing you got to do is believe, like, wholeheartedly in yourself and what you want to do. And you can't waste time. You got to be on it, because a lot of people want to cry about their lives and all this other stuff. Trust me, I do it sometimes, and I've done it a lot in the past. But regardless of what happens in this life with, health and family members and people dying and people living, like, this is still a blessing. And I'm not talking about on a religious level. You should be happy. A lot of people don't make it this far. A lot of people don't even get a chance to breathe once. So we need to, like, do something while we're here. And it could be for you. It could be for other people. To me, I want to do this for me so I can help other people. But I know you have to work your way into the system to be able to even do anything about it. So, like, just believe. If you say you want to do something, believe it. And just because you fall on your face one time or 2 times or 10 times or 20 times doesn't mean you give up on that shit. You just remold yourself and figure out another way to do this shit. And it may evolve. It may kind of change over time, but keep on pushing. There's a bigger picture.
Change is inevitable. That's the one thing that will always remain the same is change. You know, man, Jovan, I appreciate you sliding through, speaking with the audience, telling us about the Cavalry Man. Not even just the Cavalry Man, just telling us your story. I do appreciate that, you know, and I'm pretty sure the audience appreciates that. Man, I really don't have much to say after that, man. It's all said and done, man. Follow my man on the Instagrams. You know, I follow him on the Instagram, you know, and like you said, that's the best way to get in contact with him. And if you go back and listen to the entire interview again, you know, the best way to get in contact with him would be just the hashtag Cavalry Man. You know, without further ado, man, this was Fresh Radio, man. We bring you the family revolution, edutainment, spirituality, health, and hip-hop all in one show. I think we actually covered all of those. It's not like very often I get a guest that touches on each one of those aspects in one way or another, organically, I must say. So, you know, I appreciate you, bro. And, man, man, everybody out there, y'all be smooth. Peace.